In the year 1914, there was a small island with no town and no crowds, only a lighthouse and a mystery hidden in the deep sea. The film begins by showing a ship crossing the South Atlantic Ocean toward that island. On the ship was a weather officer named David. They were going to an island hidden in one of the deepest parts of the Atlantic Ocean. The government sent David to watch and write down the island's weather. He would stay about 1 year, note the weather every day, study the strange changes, and then return. The captain brought David to the island with a year's food and supplies. After the long journey, they finally reached the island. They landed by boat and carried their things ashore. There was a lighthouse and a small house on the island where David was to live, because a weather officer had lived there before. That officer's duty had finished, and he was leaving. From that day, David became the island's new weather officer, and the old officer, Robert, would return home on Captain Axel's ship. But when they entered the house, they were shocked. There was no sign of any person. The furniture was scattered, and everything was in a big mess. Maybe someone was in the lighthouse. The captain and David hurried to the lighthouse. They saw a strange sight. Sharp wooden spikes surrounded the lighthouse, and as if someone had closed it on purpose to keep people away. They knocked on the lighthouse gate many times, but got no answer. Finally, they pushed the gate hard and went inside. At the very top of the Lighthouse, they found a man named Gruner lying down. When they asked Gruner about the old weather officer, he answered without care, "He is dead." He said the man had a very bad sickness. When the captain asked about the dead body, Gruner said something stranger. Maybe someone had killed him. David and the captain were shocked by Gruner's words and thought Gruner's mind might not be right. But until they found the old officer for sure, they could not do much. The captain told David that if he still wanted, he could come back with them. David knew if he could give the government an accurate weather report from this island, he would be paid well, and he needed the money. So he decided to stay. The captain gave him a gun for protection and warned that the place might not be as safe as it looked. After the captain left, David settled the house and made it livable. In a drawer, he found the old officer's diary. The officer had come to the island in 1913. The diary had many notes about the island, but many parts were unclear and some lines were left unfinished. David read every line carefully. The diary also had strange drawings of animals. David could not understand why he had drawn those pictures. Maybe the man was lonely and drew them to pass the time. One page held a photograph of the officer's wife. David read until he became tired and slowly fell asleep. The next morning he began his work, but near the sea his steps stopped. Between the rocks, some stones were arranged in a strange way, and shells were placed among them in a neat arrangement. David thought perhaps Gruner had done it. He returned to his work, noting the weather, the very task he had come for. While watching the lighthouse through his binoculars, he thought he saw another person with Gruner, but he told himself it might be his imagination. Night fell and David was busy with his instruments when someone knocked on the door. He thought it was Gruner. David called the name, but there was no reply. Holding a lamp, he moved forward and then heard strange sounds in his ears. Under the gate, he saw a strange animal's hand trying to get in. The hand was not human. Fear filled David's heart. He immediately ran to the lower room and hid. Soon the strange animal came into the house and started looking for him. Through a small crack in the lower room, the animal's scary eyes looked at him. David grabbed a knife and, when the eyes came near the crack, he stabbed with all his strength. The animal screamed and ran away, but it could return at any time. David closed the lower room gate tightly, tied it with rope, and stayed awake all night in terror. The next morning, he found footprints in the sand. They were not like human footprints. They were clear and led straight to the sea. Now David understood why Gruner had put spikes around the lighthouse, perhaps to protect against that strange animal, and he realized the house was not safe for him. He feared the animal might come back that night. David ran to the lighthouse and shouted at Gruner to open the gate and let him in, but Gruner refused and said David should have left with the ship. David returned disappointed, and then set about making his house safer. He boarded up every window, surrounded the house with sharp wood, and placed old papers and books outside the gate. He poured oil over them so that if the strange animal came back, he could scare it away with fire. But David did not yet know one important thing, which he would learn that night. By chance, he found an old box inside the house that contained a gun and many bullets. This gave him some courage, but his fear remained. As the sun set and darkness spread, David sat quietly in a corner holding the gun. His breathing was fast. Then he heard a strange sound. and when he moved to the window, he saw many strange animals rising from the water and moving toward the house. They tried to break the gate. David fired his gun. Some animals fell, but the rest became more violent and tried to enter the house. As their numbers grew, David set fire to the old papers and books outside the gate. The animals were frightened by the flames and went back into the sea. But the paper fire spread fast, and the wooden house began to burn. David wrapped himself in a sheet, broke the gate, and ran out, hiding behind a large stone near the lighthouse. His right hand was badly burned. Luckily, it began to rain, and the rain slowly put out the fire. By morning, the house was mostly ashes. To survive, David now had to take shelter in the lighthouse. He hid among the nearby rocks. When Gruner went out to fetch water, David followed him. He planned to hold Gruner at gunpoint and enter the lighthouse. Suddenly, a strange animal near Gruner attacked him. It turned out to be Gruner's protector. Gruner stopped David and said this animal was his pet. David did not shoot. He made a deal. If he wanted to live, he must be allowed to live in the lighthouse. Gruner agreed because they had enough gunpowder and food for both for 1 year. Gruner hesitated and then nodded. Before evening, they brought the remaining food into the lighthouse. The next morning, the animal quietly licked David's hand while he slept, and after a while, his burned hand healed a lot. David was shocked, but what he saw was hard to believe. At the top of the lighthouse, Gruner counted the bullets they had, and the strange animal helped him in its own way. This showed the animal was not violent by nature. David wanted to learn more about the animal and tell the world because it seemed like a miracle. But Gruner did not want that. He never wanted to leave the island. Gruner had no one. He believed people cannot live alone in town without becoming someone's servant. For him, the island was perfect. He felt like a king and wrote his name in many places, calling himself the island's king. How had the strange female animal become his pet? Once Gruner had saved her when she got caught in his fishing net. The animal had been small then, and since that day she stayed with Gruner and obeyed him. But Gruner was violent and never treated the animal kindly. He forced her and treated her badly. Once she fought back and he punished her severely. After that, she began to think of herself as his servant. Perhaps that is why every night the animals came out of the sea to take her back. David wanted to leave. He wanted to signal any passing ship and escape, but Gruner insisted no ship ever came to that island. David did not believe him. He felt trapped and wanted to leave quickly. Evening came, and Gruner told him to be ready with the gun, because the animals might attack at any moment. They prepared to turn on the lighthouse lamp. Soon, a large number of animals rose from the sea and moved toward the lighthouse. Gruner kept firing, but David was terrified and moved inside the lighthouse. Gruner urged him to fight, but David sat in a corner and fainted. Gruner fought the animals alone. The next morning, Gruner angrily woke David and said that if David wanted to stay in the lighthouse, he must follow all orders, fetch water daily, do all small and large chores, and stand guard at night with him. Whether David liked it or not, he had to do these things to live. David agreed to do the tasks, but one thing he could not accept was Gruner's regular physical torture of the female animal. Still, a person left alone for years on such an island might lose his mind. David thought Gruner's mind might be broken, but he still had to obey. Night came, and they stood guard again as the animals rose from the sea. This time, David was not as afraid. He fired his gun, but Gruner did nothing. He shut the lighthouse gate and left David outside so David would learn to fight the animals himself. Gruner said David might die if he did not learn. David screamed for help, but Gruner did not respond. After fighting through the night, the morning came, and Gruner found David sitting outside the gate covered in blood. David had learned how to fight the animals, and his fear had left him. Time passed. Nights of fighting the animals and days doing Gruner's lighthouse chores made the island feel like a closed house to David. He always thought about when he would leave and be free. Over time, a strange friendship grew between David and the female animal. David began to feel sorry for her and understood how hard it is to live alone away from your people. David gave her a name, Anarius. One day they noticed the animals' attacks were reducing. David thought maybe they migrated in winter like whales, or maybe they realized fighting them was useless. But Gruner said no. He insisted they would attack again because they were reproducing and their numbers were growing. More days passed. One night after dinner, David and Gruner played chess to pass the time, but they became so absorbed in the game, they forgot to turn on the lighthouse. In the dark, the animals used the chance to attack. David saw that the animals had bred, and their numbers were so large that two people could not hold them for long. Bullets were nearly finished. Somehow they reached the top of the lighthouse, but Gruner's leg was badly injured. The animals tried to get inside, and David and Gruner had no escape. They gave up, but luckily morning came, and with the sun the animals returned to the sea. Anarius tried to heal Gruner's wound, but David now knew they could not win this fight forever. Bullets were nearly gone, and their food would not last long. The next day, while walking outside the lighthouse, David saw a ship in the sea. He ran to get a flare, but Gruner stopped him because he did not want David to leave. At that moment, Anarius attacked Gruner to protect David. Gruner would not let anyone leave because the island was his world. He lived like a king who kept a servant to obey all orders. After so long alone, he finally had someone to talk to, and he did not want to lose that. The ship vanished into the sea before David's eyes, and there was nothing he could do. Days passed, and Gruner continued to treat David and Anarius badly, hitting Anarius more than David liked. One day, David gave Anarius a small toy boat he had carved from whalebone to cheer her. When Anarius saw the boat, she led David to a corner of the island where a real boat lay. When David asked Gruner about it, he said he already knew of that boat. Some months before, an arms smuggling ship carrying lots of ammunition had sunk near the island in a storm. Some people reached the island alive by boat, but by morning, none of them survived. All were taken by the animals. Hearing this, David made a plan. They had a diving suit. If someone wore it and dived to the wreck, they might find bullets or dynamite to help fight the animals. Gruner refused. He would not go near the sea. But David was ready to risk his life. More days went by, and the bond between David and Anarius grew deep. David began to care for her. Gruner watched this secretly. For the first time, he thought maybe he should help David. But his real plan was different. He wanted David to bring the boxes of dynamite from under the sea and then leave David alone so the animals would kill him. Then Gruner would have the dynamite, and Anarius would be his servant again. They reached the wreck, and David put on the diving suit and went under. The ship was destroyed, but by luck, they found some boxes of dynamite. Suddenly, the animals appeared, and David panicked and fell. The heavy iron diving suit made it hard for him to move, and he could not signal Gruner. Gruner thought the animals had killed David, but in fact there were only 2 small children there. He used a breathing trick to reduce pressure, left the heavy suit, and swam up to the surface. They found old boxes with dynamite and set explosives in 2 layers around the lighthouse so the next attack could destroy the animals in one blast. Months passed, then snow fell, and once again the animals disappeared. Attacks stopped, and their main work became running the lighthouse and keeping guard. Gruner lost his patience. Maybe Anarius had told the animals about the dynamite plan, and that is why they stopped attacking. Gruner went mad with anger and began to beat Anarius, but David stopped him. Finally, they made a new plan: leave the main gate open, so when the animals came, they would walk in and be blown up by the dynamite. Soon the animals rose from the sea. They headed for the main gate and entered, attacking David. David fought back bravely. As the animals reached the lighthouse, Gruner pulled the dynamite lever, but the blast did not go off. The connection had been cut. David had accidentally disconnected it. He ran up and began to reconnect the wire, while animals tried to climb the lighthouse and Gruner fought to hold them. When the connection was complete, David detonated the first layer, and many animals died in the blast, but still many were left and ready to attack. Gruner detonated the second layer too. Both men were knocked out by the terrible explosions. When they woke the next morning, Anarius was not there. Dead animals lay scattered all around. Gruner killed the wounded survivors. Then David saw a necklace on one creature and felt shock. He realized the animals were like people. They could not speak, but they had families. Maybe they had attacked the lighthouse for a reason, not because they were evil. For Gruner, this did not matter. He saw himself as the island's king and expected obedience. After that day, the animals never attacked like before, but each day David heard a voice crying from the shore. He realized how much harm they had done, how many families were broken, and how many children lost their parents, all because of a wrong idea. The next day, David saw some small children of those animals in the sea who had lost their families. David made a circle of stones on the shore and placed the small toy boat in the middle so Anarius might return. He waited, but Anarius never came back. One morning, David found Gruner unconscious with some old things around him, including an old photograph. When David looked at the photo, he was shocked. The girl in the photo was the same one he had seen in Gruner's diary. She was Gruner's wife, and she had been the weather officer who had come to the lighthouse about a year earlier. Her real name was Robert, but he had changed his name because he never wanted to leave the island. Seeing all this, David lost hope of ever leaving the island. The next evening, David went to the sea and saw that the small boat in the stone circle was gone, but a small creature child held the boat in its hands. David dropped his torch into the circle to show he meant no harm. He wanted friendship. After a short while, a Nereus rose from the waves, and behind her came a whole group of animals from the sea. This time, none attacked David because they also wanted peace. They only wanted a safe place for their children, as any parent does. They had not liked humans suddenly coming to their island, and that was why they attacked at night. But who could explain this to Gruner? He still thought himself the island's king. Gruner came out of the lighthouse with a gun. David tried to tell him the animals did not want to fight. They wanted peace. Gruner refused to listen and shouted at Nereus to go inside. For the first time, Nereus did not obey him because she was no longer his servant. She was a mother standing up for her children. Gruner felt weak inside because no one obeyed him now. Angry, he walked toward the lighthouse. David thought maybe Gruner would understand that every living being wanted freedom and no one wants to be a slave. But Gruner was not sensible. When he reached the lighthouse, he fired a signal flare, and it hit a small creature child. The child died instantly. All the animals ran away in terror, and Nereus lost all trust in David. Enraged, David ran at Gruner and fought him, asking why he had done this. These animals only wanted peace. Gruner had become so violent he decided to kill David. As he raised an axe to strike, David called him by his true name, Robert. Hearing his real name made Gruner stop. He had never been a killer. Life on the island had broken his mind. Loneliness, his wife's death, and very deep sadness had made him into what he had become. He was actually a good man. The animals never wanted to fight. They wanted peace. Robert had killed them to feel powerful, and now he saw his mistake. He gave himself up to the animals, and in a short while, they killed him. David locked himself inside the lighthouse. Time passed, and after a year, a government officer came with a new weather officer. They took David away, but the new officer thought David was Gruner, and David did not correct the mistake. He quietly went to the balcony and stood without speaking. Now, like Gruner, he did not want to leave the island. Meanwhile, Nereus was happy with her family. They no longer feared a man like Gruner. Now she and her group could live freely on the island and in the sea. And with this, the story ends. So, friends, I hope you like this story very much, and if you are watching our channel for the first time, then please like the video and subscribe to the channel.